Hi everyone, I am home from the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia, safe and sound, and mostly unscathed except for this assault on my nostrils for the drive home, because there is definitely a smell in my car that I've yet to pinpoint and identify. So what are you gonna do? I'm gonna try and figure that out later today. And please pardon my voice. It is obviously very hoarse from the activities of the week. So I wanted to make a video of what I saw at the DNC. I'm not going to be bashing any candidates in this video, and it's mostly what I observed and the thoughts I had as I reflected on my time there. I'll try and convey the events exactly as I saw them, but it is my kind of personal viewpoint, so objectivity will try, but it may waver throughout the discussion here. I'll touch on the environment outside the convention, the police, the media inside the convention, and then an overall kind of just observation on our current political landscape. And this includes all parties. And then kind of what I took from it. If you'd rather read a post than watch, a 20-25 minute video, I'm going to type up a transcript and put that in the very first comment, and you can so you can read that instead. And then after the video, I'm going to take a slight reprieve from politics for at least, maybe the weekend or something. Because for as exciting as it was really, it's draining for like the mind, the body, the spirit, and I really need to kind of recharge on that. So, alright, so the nominations have been made, the conventions are pretty much over, and the question for quite a few people is kind of where do we go from here? This is not going to be a Bernie Sanders promo video, although we really don't have to guess kind of where my loyalties lie there. But I will be sharing my personal answer to that question, and at the end of the video I'm going to share some links and things like that, so burners might want to stick around to the end, or even if you're a non-burner and you're just curious or you love hearing me ramble on, you can go ahead and watch all the way to the end too. Everybody's welcome. Just a quick introduction, because hopefully people that don't know me personally are going to be seeing this. I'm from Ohio. I'm a 30-year-old. I did graduate college in 2008 during the recession. Couldn't find a job, ended up changing oil for 3 years. Still have a lot of student loan debt. And even though I work 2 jobs, business analyst and a musician, and yes, that second one is a job. If you do anything enough, it becomes work. So I do pretty much live paycheck to paycheck. And it's just me and a dog, so I can't even imagine like people who have children, or if you're starting to take care of your parents, your elderly parents, I can't even imagine how those struggles are compounded for them. So I guess my point is that I am not distant from the struggles that a lot of us are facing, and it was only by the grace of some very, very kind people and twists of fate 2 days before I left for Philly that I was able to not only go to the convention, but then actually get into Wells Fargo. And I'm so fortunate because that means I got to see both sides of the DNC, both outside in the street and then also sitting inside the Wells Fargo Center. And it was truly an eye-opening and life-changing experience. So we'll start with on the streets. I will say it was incredible, and it was hot in that sweltering heat, but I did see all walks of life, all ages, all races. It was the most diverse crowd that I had ever been a part of. And people were there for various causes, but there was definitely warmth and kindness and this sense of unity that I didn't quite expect from a crowd that large, because it becomes a variable when you have all those people. And the most intense demonstration that I saw personally was on Tuesday between the roll call ending and Bill Clinton speaking. And there were some demonstrators getting worked up. They were very few and far between. And anytime we saw someone acting with that kind of negative behavior, for every one of those demonstrators, there was 10 others telling them, this isn't how we want to be, it doesn't promote the cause, and calming each other down. In the particular march that I participated in, every time we went by a wall of police officers, we would automatically stop the chant we were doing at the time and just chant "Thank you, police." And I really kind of felt like that in a nutshell kind of represents what we're trying to do with this movement. And from everything I saw, the Philadelphia police were fantastic. There was hugs, there was fist bumps, there was smiles, and just like every interaction I had with demonstrators, I always received a smile and a you too when I would fist bump someone and say, you know, stay safe out there. So there was clean energy, anti-TPP, Black Lives Matter, Bernie, Green Party. I mean, there was just a ton of marches, and I really didn't hear any reports of anyone, you know, being harmed, violence. The organizational ability of the coordinators of these events for the DNC, it like really still astounds me. And the giving nature of everyone was unmatched to anything I had ever experienced in my life. If you had, you know, water, food, clothing, if you could give someone a ride, if someone needed something and you had it to spare, it was just given, without question, without expectation, and it really just felt good. It felt good to be a part of it. And the only times I personally experienced any anger or disrespect was actually only inside the convention center. So, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I do know the media was just itching for like cars to be flipped over and riots and the city on fire, and so I'm proud to say that even in the most heated moments, it could usually be controlled, and it was usually by the good words and good actions of the majority of the demonstrators. So that was a decent segue here into the media section. So I can confirm that it doesn't matter what major broadcast network you're watching, what is actually happening and what you're seeing are two very different things. And if it's not, it's a rarity. And I'm probably telling you things you didn't, you know, you already suspected, but I'm telling you, I saw it with my own eyes. They have a narrative, and they're not trying to tell you a story, they're trying to sell you a story, and it is biased based on the programming. Luckily, there was a lot of independent media news outlets, you know, webcasts, websites, papers, independent papers, and things like that, that were definitely, you know, you can definitely tell that they care about presenting the facts and then letting you have the story. And that's for both parties and things like that. So we live in a time where information is available at our fingertips, and we probably just really need to take advantage of that so we can sift through everything and find the story. You know, just a couple of cases in particular, like when I was in Wells Fargo, and this was after the delegates walked out, I was actually on the phone with someone who was watching a live broadcast, and they said they only see full seats. They didn't see any empty seats. When I'm looking down at a floor in an arena that's half empty, and just things like that. That was just one of many examples that I saw that happening over my course of the time there. So be wary, I guess is what I'm saying for that. Inside the convention, it was tense. That's the best word I have for it. It is going to be very hard, and I would even argue it might not be possible to create unity within the Democratic Party, as I imagine with the Republican Party also. Not only just because it was so tense, but a lot of people that came into the Democratic Party in this last, 10 months was because they converted from independent just to be able to vote for Bernie in the primaries. And now they're going back. So it's not like the Democrats are losing all these lifelong Democrats. These are people that switched initially and now are going back. So it's harder to sway them over to the, blue no matter who Democratic platform. But basically we have candidates with strong positions, and that's going to breed strong supporters. And here's just where I'll offer my personal experience on it. I never felt welcome as a Sanders supporter in the convention center. And I know those who know me personally might find it hard to believe, but I really kept my thoughts to myself because I could sense the tension, and I didn't want to spend the whole time, arguing or upset. But just the looks I got as I was walking through the concourse, going to get food, and people actually said stuff to me, purposely bumped into me, and said something under their breath. And it was just really downright rude and disrespectful. And if you're trying to get somebody's vote, you know, that's not the way to do it. And so it was amazing to experience the politics up close, but it was really just exhausting because you never felt comfortable. But I will say in my section, I did end up sitting next to an amazing Clinton supporter. And she actually brought her 15-year-old son because he just loves Bernie Sanders so much. So, and I thought to myself, like, okay, now this is what I'm talking about. And the items we disagreed on were few, but they were major enough to justify why we were each picking our particular candidate. But the things we had in common were immense. There was a lot of them. And we had a conversation, not an argument, and neither of us converted each other, but we exchanged information even before I left. So the dialogue is possible, and I thought it was just so remarkable that regardless of how she felt about politics and what candidate, it was more important to her to let her son pursue his interest and his candidate and bring him into kind of the environment. So I was impressed that even though there was tension, that regardless of the candidate that was being supported, absolutely no one was apathetic there. In a sense, it was refreshing. Everyone genuinely cared about their candidate and their beliefs and their voice. Unfortunately, it was mostly easily counterbalanced by a lack of respect and understanding for those that had an opposing view. So with that statement, I would like to make a quick personal request on behalf of my suffering burners out there, and I've heard your pleas. So whatever your political leanings are, just please try and understand that Sanders supporters are grieving right now. And whether you agree with what those supporters believe in or not, the fact is these people were and still are very truly invested, and to lose is a loss. And I can't imagine that there is any of us out there that where their candidate has won every election since they started voting. So this is definitely an area where we can relate pretty easily. I really believe we all have the capability to hold our principles without it negatively affecting others. And so the sadness is very real, and for people to express understanding and respect does not indicate agreement, it just indicates compassion. So, which brings me to my final thoughts on the political climate, and where do we go from here. And when I say we, I mean the American people, not a party, not any candidate, but us, the constituents. And from getting to be outside the convention center and inside, my main observation is that there is still a very genuine disconnect between the people and most of our elected officials. They've forgotten what it's like to be in the trenches of daily living, and many people feel that the candidates we're being offered aren't necessarily the candidates we deserve or that represent our ideals. And after a lot of thought, I see two ways for us to kind of bridge that divide between voters and candidates. And they aren't new ideas by any means, but I guess they're just worth reiterating. And the very first one is that we just need new faces in the political ring at all levels, especially local on up. It's cliche to say, you know, be the change you want to see, but it is so true. And if we keep waiting for these politicians that have been so deep in politics for so long that they can no longer relate to us, if we're waiting for those people to take up the mantle, I mean, we're just going to be waiting lifetimes. So, and I say that knowing that I've been, you know, guilty of not being as active as I could be to this point. So for myself, I plan on throwing my hat in that ring here, even if it's just interning, volunteering on a campaign, just starting really at the most local level and hopefully leading to running for elective office. But what we need is organic, people-based, community-based leaders, and we can start answering that call. And the other way is informed voting. Our overall voter turnout for the country is very low, and it usually leads to elected officials that don't represent the majority of the people. And we absolutely cannot hold our politicians accountable if we're not holding ourselves accountable. And some of those elected keep skating by for years and years and years without doing their jobs because enough of us don't show up to the polls. and show them that there's both positive and negative consequences to the quality of your work in your elected position. So we really just have to make everyone earn our vote up and down the ticket every time. And we're in this digital age with the ability to be informed and make educated choices on our ballots, and too many of us as Americans just feel like we're just trying to survive all the time. And it looks like it's going to be up to us, and we can definitely just start with more active participation. And for my personal answer for where do I go from here, regarding this November, I have to honestly tell you, I don't know. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I keep thinking about it and coming to different conclusions, but really I'm just going to take all the time I need to decide how I'm going to cast my vote, because I'm probably not alone in saying that this is really just a tough one. In a more big picture sense, like I said, I'm going to start being more active, and because I'm realizing that just posting things and words on a computer screen just aren't going to cut it when it comes to contributing to the America I want to see. So to start, along with researching and choosing how I want to become active in politics, I do kind of want to create a Facebook page in the very near future that's centered around politics. It's going to be separate from my personal page, because I'm sure people, when they try and get like gig information, they're sick of sifting through 8 million articles just to get there. But really, in addition to my liberal persuaded greatest hits, I'd like to actually really use it as a forum to help educate each other. And so if someone has a question on an issue or a candidate, or if you were originally Republican or Democrat and you have questions on like the Libertarian or the Green Party, this would be the place to go. And but I will definitely monitor it for respectful dialogue, because I know that the quickest way to shut communication and shut another person down is to act like their opinions and their feelings and their questions just aren't valid. And then my other startup ideas are more focused on my particular political leanings, and that's going to be addressed now in the remainder of this video. So if you're departing us at this point, I hope this was informative, and I want to thank you for watching, and I want to thank everyone that showed me support on my journey to and from the DNC. And it was not just people from my movement, it was all over, and it was greatly appreciated. Now this section of the video is probably mostly for my Bernie supporters out there, or more left-leaning people. But if you're thinking of exploring that kind of territory, or like I said, if you just like to hear me ramble, feel free to stick around. First, I had countless people personally thank me, like Facebook message me and things like that, for going to the convention and sharing my experience. And let me say that I really should be thanking all of you. Bernie Sanders is the inspiration, but you all were the motivation, and you kept me going through it. And whatever energy the DNC took out of me, you all refilled my heart and my soul, you know, tenfold, okay? All right, so here we go. Bernie is not the presidential nominee. So we feel lost, we feel mourning, and where do we go from here? I just want to, as someone who's been, you know, pretty involved in election cycles and things like that, as far as researching candidates, I just want to say that politics is difficult and it's very frustrating. And I know, especially for those where this was either their first time being allowed to vote, you know, or if it was the first time you were just really truly inspired by a candidate, that this pain is deep and emotions are high, and it's really easy to just dismiss all of it and walk away. Compromises seem like a loss, but I can assure you that in the political arena that is not the case. And so I guess I'm just saying, please do not give up. We have been vindicated in so many ways in the last 3 weeks, and I know a lot of it feels like, well, too little, too late, but I'm telling you, it's never too late. And since Bernie Sanders is the man, like, I personally will be following, not just Bernie Sanders the candidate, but Bernie Sanders the man. He knows better than anybody, he's been doing it for 40 plus years, that everything takes time and everything takes compromise. So I understand exactly how you're feeling. I've shed the tears myself and I've had the anger myself, but just please stick with it. We want a revolution that's based in progress. And that kind of change never happens overnight, and generally not even in one election cycle. This revolution is going to take time. It can't just be something that explodes and then fades away. But what we have been able to accomplish in one election cycle is nothing short of remarkable and amazing. And everybody should feel nothing but pride for that. Everyone loves an underdog story, and we had one for the ages. So now we have to decide what we're going to do in November. This is a touchy subject, and I notice that there is contention and a struggle from within the group on what the best choice is. So I do just want to take a moment and say that we all have our reasons for why we're going to vote the way we are in November, and that even if it's different choices, we really just need to remember that we are all branches coming off the same tree. And the roots of that are that we want to see change and we want to have a better tomorrow, not only for ourselves but for future generations. So disagreeing is fine. And like I said, if people have questions, we want to educate each other, we want to have an open dialogue, but we absolutely cannot start dismissing each other, because we can do so much more when we support each other and are being soundboards for each other. So keep the dialogue educational and open. We need the same understanding between ourselves within the movement as we would request and hope for from people outside of the movement. So, but ultimately when you walk in to the poll and you go to cast your vote, it is only you and the ballot. And do what you feel is best. And you don't have to tell anybody, but just do what you feel your heart is best. And you're alone in there, but when you walk out, remember you're not alone, and we're going to keep walking this path together. So we are passionate people, and really what it comes down to is how we choose to manifest that passion. To me, and in line with the man that we call our leader, I feel like it's just active positivity. Whether it's nonviolent protests, petitions, volunteering on a progressive candidate's campaign, or becoming a progressive candidate yourself, we can never underestimate the power of having politicians, elected officials that would create quality legislation that reflects us. So I just want to share a personal kind of story. As I was sitting in Wells Fargo trying to absorb the events of the day after the roll call and before Bill Clinton was going to speak, I asked myself, why am I still sitting here? And I couldn't really come up with a good answer that was beyond my own ego, kind of just to say, oh, well, I got to see Bill Clinton speak. And so without a negative word or a display at all, I just acted on my principles and I went back onto the streets with the people. And it was a small move, but I kind of had this revelation, a revelation, if you will. I should trademark that. That in any given moment, with consideration and forethought, we can individually make decisions based on our principles without causing harm to others. And if we can all do that individually, then as a collective, we could just have limitless accomplishments. Some of the greatest progress has been made because after falling, the people stand back up, they brush themselves off, and they still dare to dream and dream big. So, shortly after roll call was completed at the DNC, the Sanders camp did send out an email regarding the continuation of the movement. It's called Our Revolution, and the link to join is ourrevolution.com. And I'll put that link in the comments below. And as shown in this election cycle, we are a large portion of voters, and it's important to not let this fizzle out or fade away. So the next chapter for us is obviously very new, but in addition to the national group, there has been discussion of having local chapters to discuss what we're working for, how to become involved, information on candidates, etc. So it can be easier to coordinate on a larger scale. So I do want to try and head up one of those chapters when that finally starts developing. So I'm in the Akron area, so it could be like Cleveland, Akron, Northeast Ohio type thing. We as a movement, we are motivated, we are informed, we're organized, and we can do this, and we'll make a difference. There's millions of us, and a wise man has said that let us understand that when we stand together, we will always win. So thank you again, everyone. Be well, be strong, and I'll see you out there.